Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we're going to go ahead and I wanted to break down the last 5 minutes of this domination match between Chicago and London. The very end of this was super exciting from yesterday's video where we closed out the match. So we went through, we talked about the last hardpoint that ended up giving Chicago the victory. There were a ton of comments on that video of people wanting to see this domination map. So rather than break down the whole 10 minutes, those videos tend to get pretty long because each of the halves are 5 minutes. So by the time you're really done stopping it and pausing it and breaking it down, you have a 20-minute video, and I just didn't want to do that. So we're picking up right now in the second half. Right now, there's 4 minutes left currently, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to pause this, and I'm going to bring up the mini-map. This mini-map's normally in the bottom left-hand corner. I wanted to make sure that we could see it properly, but a little bit of an interesting thing right here. So if you're unaware, the more dominant side, so if you're playing domination on the map Gunrunner, this is the more dominant spawn, right? So if you spawn on the left-hand side, then it's super dominant because it's easier to hold A, it's easier to get into B, and then once you're in B, it's easier to hold B. So normally, typically, and I'm not saying this is what always happens, but if you had to draw up a perfect game plan, you'd want to get A, and then rotate and hold B, and then continue to spawn trap the enemy team over at C. So in the first half, Chicago had that spawn on the left-hand side of the map. After the first half, they were down by like 8 or 10 points. So on the second half, when they spawned on the right side of the map, they were really up against the wall. But let's go ahead and let's just kind of explain what happens here and what you normally try to do. So again, if you're London, then you're spawning here to start the round. You get A, you go ahead, you rotate over to B, and then once you hold B, the reason why this is so much easier is because there's really only one choke point, right? If you have anybody, like you have all these blue arrows set up here, if you have all of those arrows set up there, there's really only one choke point. Now, there's two ways to get in, right? You can go through either of these flank routes here to get in, but there's really only one area you have to watch. And then, of course, they could come through pipes, but that's not really all that bad because you could just have somebody sitting in U or maybe towards water, and that's also an area that's kind of easy to watch. So there's really only one way that can feed over towards B. The other reason why it's easier is because the spawn from B is a lot closer, or the spawn from A is a lot closer. So if you're spawning here in warehouse, you have a really short distance. Whereas if you're spawning in C, the good spawn for B would be over here. So this is somewhat the same distance, but it's just the flow of the map takes a little bit longer. But if London pushes up, say London pushes up into this area of the map, then now you're going to spawn on the bottom side of the map. And if you start spawning on the bottom side of the map, now you're really far away from B, right? So that's just a couple quick notes right away here. The other thing that I want to talk about is if you're the team that has A, okay, just because I want to make sure that we're clear on all of these. If you're the team that has A and you have B, then of course you want to watch these cuts right here. But one thing you can do, and this is really the dominant part of this map, is you can send somebody over through woods through P4 and you can start to neutral C. So you'll start to see this neutral game, right? Where somebody will hop on C, and if you get somebody on C, then that's immediately going to start spawning the other team, Chicago in this instance, up in the top right-hand side of the map. So what you'll see a lot of teams do is you'll see them push C. As soon as they get it neutral, they'll just come back here and hide or come over here to open crates or push into P2 over here, right? They're just going somewhere to hide. And as soon as Chicago comes down from that spawn, they'll just kill them. They'll make sure it's still neutral, and then they'll go hide somewhere else. So you start to play this game because if you have 2 flags and your enemy has 0, then for every 5 seconds, you're earning 2 points. Whereas if the enemy team has C, every 5 seconds, you're only earning 1 point. So that's kind of a game that likes to be played, and that's the ideal situation, right? Capture A, capture B, have somebody neutral C, and then start to spawn trap the enemy team up in the top right-hand corner of the map. So those are just a couple strategies I wanted to make sure that we were going through, because as this plays out, there's a lot of things that it's really a fluid situation, but a lot of those strategies end up coming into play. It's just they happen really fast. Whereas most of the time, I don't want to say that this map is slow, but the evolution of the strategies on this map is pretty slow. So biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is that as of the first minute and 10 seconds or so, Chicago has done a really nice job of holding down C and B. And I want to make sure that we don't miss what just happened there. So Pristini, or that was ENVOY, sorry. ENVOY was able to sneak through mid-map. He was get over to boxes, and as soon as he got into boxes, he was able to pinch from behind. He killed Dylan. He killed Wuskins. He shot both of them in the back, right? You can see it right here. The kill feed, you have Dylan, you have Wuskin. Pristini also got a pick, and as soon as that happened, just that simple flank route through the middle of the map ended up securing CMB for Chicago again. And that's where it comes into play, having like an aggressive SMG or a really like a high-level slayer like ENVOY, somebody that can get into that area. And then now that you're ENVOY, you're just pushed up a little bit. So this is kind of tough, right? Because if you're London, your whole goal is, well, we have to get A and B. They're realizing now that it's really tough to get into B when they're pushed up so far. So they're starting to split a little bit. And I think that this is a massive mistake. If you have A, you have to try to work your way towards B, because if you just get one set of team kills, you're going to be set up back in those. You're already going to be in those spawn traps, and there's not much to worry about. Whereas, so look what happened right now. They're able to get just 1 or 2 kills up by B-Dom, right? We're looking up here towards the top of the map. You get 1 or 2 kills up here towards B-Dom, and now all of a sudden you're the team that's set up the way that you want to be set up. The bad thing is, so when they came up off the spawn the last time around, they were at A and they came over towards C. If they would have been successful, remember, ENVOY was posted up here in minecart. So if they're successful with getting towards C, all ENVOY has to do is just come down, and now they have A, they have B, and now they're back. Chicago's back to having the dominant spawns. So I don't necessarily love that call there from London. I get that they might starting to be panicking just a tiny bit because they entered this second half having the best side and having the lead. And that was very quickly ripped away, right? We're 2 minutes into this second side, and they already started to lose the lead, and it was getting a little bit away from them, right? Further and further away from them. So at this point in time, you can see Chicago working towards B. You can see London working towards B, and they kind of trade out 2 pieces there. And that's really all that's happening right now, is that you don't want to rush on top of B and get slayed out and then give up B. So they waited until they got a couple picks over by B, and as soon as they did, they took advantage of it, and they were able to re-secure that A and B 2-cap. Now, if you're Chicago, you have a couple people over towards A, right? So let's go ahead. Let's show this mini map again. I want to make sure that we're pointing this out here. If we're paying attention, we have down here, we have Arcides, and we also have SCUMP. So as London was working its way up towards B, they were able to get a couple kills. When Arcides and SCUMP came up off of spawn, rather than work their way back towards B, they pushed out towards A. So even though they don't have those spawns yet, you can see what they're setting up. So let's go ahead. Let's start this because there's a ton to break down towards the end of this. So I want to make sure that I'm not spending 15 minutes breaking down the first 3 minutes, because that's just what I like to do. Every little thing that I see, I like to analyze and break down. But I want to make sure we're not spending too much time on some of those earlier things. But you can see the progression of this so far. Whoops, just realized that I was on the wrong camera. But you can see the progression of this. Right now, Chicago was able to get a couple kills inside A. They went ahead, and now they've pushed over towards B. They're capturing B, and it is essentially just flip the map, right? So that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. If you're at C, you work your way over towards A. Once you're at A, you get a couple kills. You secure spawns for your team. As soon as you have that, you can work your way towards B. And now all of a sudden you flip the map. You have control of A and B. The enemy's spawning over at C. And it's just a never-ending story, right? That's what you want to do over and over again. So right now, it's 152 to 123, and things are looking pretty good, right? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pause this, and I want you guys to see that they're up by 19 points, right? Over the course of, so if you have 2 flags and your enemy team has 1 flag, you can gain 1 point every 5 seconds. So over the course of 5 minutes, or over the course of 1 minute, you can make up 12 points. So if you're Chicago, as long as you hold A, London can only make up, well, there's a minute 11 left. So the only thing that they can make up is 14 points. So if you just hold A, you're going to end up winning, because if you were to go ahead and add the difference here, 14 wouldn't be enough to overtake the lead. So if you're Chicago, that's why you don't see ENVOY pushing so much, because at this point in time, he realizes that they can't win with just 2 flags. So now all of a sudden your strategy kind of flips a little bit, unless you're Pristini, right? If you're Pristini, you just rush all over the place anyways. That's just kind of how he plays. But you can see, look at how Chicago's kind of spreading out, right? Now it's a little bit different. Rather than, so in Chicago's mind, they know London has to go for the triple cap. So they don't want to send so many resources up towards B, because if they do and they're not successful at capturing B and London hits the flank over towards the bottom of the map, so like Shawnee's coming up right here, Scraps is coming up behind him. If London hits the flank over on this side, now all of a sudden you're in danger of giving up that triple cap. So Chicago's just making the adjustment that I don't really care anymore what's happening up at B. The only thing we have to worry about are those players that might be flanking out towards mid-map or towards bottom map, trying to force a triple cap, because even if they were to get a triple cap for like 15 seconds, that could be enough. So as this progresses here, just kind of keep your eyes on the mini-map in the bottom left-hand corner, because you can start to see how this thing works out. And it starts with 0 right here. So in terms of B, it's not captured yet, but right now, this is where it happens. So SCUMP is in position right here, but if you look at the kill feed on the left-hand side of the screen, 0 got a kill, Dylan got a kill, Scraps, and Shawnee. So 4 immediately went down for Chicago, and this is where things start to hurt a little bit, right? If you're looking at the top of the screen where the score is, you can see that A is in the process of being captured, and B had just been captured. So it's almost like the worst scenario for Chicago is playing out. All they had to do was hold A, and 4 people immediately went down. And as soon as that happened, that opened up the door for London. As we go ahead and press play right there, that's a big kill just momentarily for SCUMP. The other thing that I want to show you real quick is that the problem with what's happening right now is that Chicago is getting a split spawn, right? So if you're looking at the mini-map in the bottom left-hand corner, I'll make it bigger for you. ENVOY spawning back here in the back. At the same time, Pristini spawning on the right-hand side of the map. And Formal just died over here towards Woods. But essentially, every area of the map has something covered by a London player, right? They have arrows up here on B. They have an arrow watching C. And we just saw what happened, how SCUMP just got killed, got traded out there on A. So this is where things start to get super hectic in Domination, because there's a split spawn. London knows they have to go for the triple cap. And right now there's only 18 seconds left. So let's go ahead. Let's let this play out. And you can see that Pristini is going to go for this capture, right? He has to neutral this. He's going to end up getting killed. At that same time over at A, now all of a sudden things have stopped at A, right? So ENVOY was able to kill 0. 0 just killed SCUMP. So now again, if you're looking at the top center of your screen, now that capture is coming back in for Chicago. So if you think about it right now, okay, if Chicago's not to get another flag, right now London has 2 flags. So they're going to get 2 ticks with 5 seconds, which would put them 153 to 120. And they're going to get 2 ticks when the game ends. So that would be 154 to 153. London would win. So that kill by ENVOY is massive. And I wish that we were watching them right there. ENVOY gets a kill. And you can see that the capture came in, right? So as that capture comes in, as they get A, that's enough to go ahead and give them the victory there. I know a ton of things happen really quickly, but that gives them the extra point, and they end up winning by 1. So crazy thing about Domination is that so many things can happen down the stretch that sometimes it's just super hard to follow, and that's really why I have this series on my channel. So especially when like we were saying at the very beginning of the video that you want to hold A and you want to hold B and you want to spawn trap the enemy team at C. That's the ideal scenario. But we just saw down the last 18-20 seconds there how all of that can be thrown out the window, and it really just comes down to like getting clutch kills on A. So ENVOY came up clutch there. He was able to stop the triple cap at A. If he didn't stop that triple cap, then those points would have gone to London, and London would have ended up winning. So it really is, it's just SCUMP clutching up, getting a kill, 0 traded out SCUMP. ENVOY came in, was able to kill 0. On the same time, the opposite side of the map, Shawnee killed Pristini as Pristini was trying to neutral C, and there's a million things that are happening, right? So it's really hard to break it down in the heat of the moment, but I'm happy that I can go back and hopefully slow things down and make it a little bit easier. So if you're new around here and you enjoy this sort of content, I put out brand new videos like this every single day. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments whatsoever on this video, go ahead, put them down below. I love the interaction and seeing what you guys have to say. Leave a like before you head on the way. It really helps out the channel. With that, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for checking out another episode.